Is this the Rookie CEO podcast?
Yeah, I think we're in the right place.
Oh, Hev, it's recording. This is Fuzz.
And I'm Heath, and you're listening to the Rookie CEO podcast.
Today we are talking about how to draw the line between discounts, free work, and exposure. Today it is just me and Heather. We're going to be discussing our experience personally and what we'd advise any business today to ensure that people aren't really taking the mick at your business.
Yeah, I think probably it's a good place to start with you on this one, because I think videographers and photographers probably get this more than most other people in terms of, oh, do you want to photograph our event for exposure rather than getting paid? And there's only so much exposure that can put food on the table.
I think the reason for that is, like, obviously when providing content, you could easily watermark it with your logo.
Yeah.
And it's just like sponsoring, really, a social media post, where it's quite hard to do that being anywhere else, really. I don't know where else you can really do that. But that's the reason why it's so popular anyway. But yeah, of course, I think one thing that if you are going to be supporting businesses with your free content or for exposure, it's really important that they're aligned with your values. And that's one thing that I did learn quite early on, is if I'm going to be supporting another business, they're going to be potentially posting these constantly and it's got your business logo on. If they're not aligned with your values, if they end up getting a poor reputation, it can impact your business.
Yeah.
So I think that's quite a deep answer, but it's really important to think big and think long term. So obviously the go-to is make sure paid work is obviously preferable.
Yeah.
But if there's like an opportunity to support another business, whether it's an agreement or exchange of services or whatever, just make sure it's the right business.
Yeah, and I do think that don't let your ego get in the way. If you're at the start of your journey, you've got no bookings in the diary, approach people, say, you know, like, I've seen that you've got this event on, I'd love to come and photograph or if you're a videographer, do some videos for you, free of charge, in return that I get to kind of have my brand on it as you publicise it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's you seizing and seeking out opportunities. But I think the problem comes when it's a precedent and people expect continued work from you on just an exposure basis. Because the thing is, you do it once for them, they know your work's good at that point. Yeah. Whatever field this is, whether this is doing like some teaser HR work or whether this is doing something creative, you only really need to do it once for exposure for them to know you're good. Yeah. I think unless you have got it in your mind that you're going to do it kind of as a sponsor basis, return of services kind of thing, then you need to kind of draw the line of when it becomes paid work.
I think that's where communication just plays a massive part, because it allows you to set that very clear expectation of, like, this is what's happening. We're over exchanging services. If you want to continue using us after this, these are the packages that we're offering. And then these offers will expire on this date. Yeah. It's been very clear, because when you are clear as well, they'll actually value it more. They'll value, this is worth £500.
Well, this is what I was going to say. I think you need to make it clear. If you're doing something for free or if you're doing exchange of services, you need to make very clear what you're offering, the value of that. So say you're doing a swap of services. Is the swap of services of equal value? Is one person getting the better end of the deal or the other? Because I know, me personally, I tend to steer way away from swap of services purely because I've been burnt once before, and I'm kind of like, in my head now, have it that there'll always be someone that gets the better end of the stick. Yeah. But if you're in a situation where that's not the case and it's really working for you, then by all means.
Yeah. So on the I'm not sure if exchange of services we were going to touch on in this episode, but just whilst we are on that subject, there's obviously a couple of paths you can go down, and that's what, just from my experience, you can either have like a credit system that it's very sort of like, this is the agreement, we're going to basically either do it like exchange of hours or exchange of, like, you have like a credit system, and make it very clear that that's being used by both parties and it's being recorded correctly. And I'm fully aware that could potentially impact the relationship, because it's going from like quite an informal agreement to a very formal agreement. But if you're going to go for the informal agreement, that relationship needs to be tight, because it is likely going to be impacted, because there are going to be times where one of them is getting the better end of the stick. And it's important that they're self-aware of that. They bring that up in a conversation and say, look, I don't feel like I'm doing my end of the bargain here. what do you feel like? I need your honesty, and just have that sort of like catch up maybe once a quarter if that is going to be a long term agreement.
Yeah.
But it's true. You're right, and it can impact the business on multiple levels. But I think it's really important to think long term.
I think before you do anything, and I think I've talked about this on the Rookie platform, and I'm sure I've put it in some sort of social media posts and stuff. Unless you've sat down and mapped out what your client looks like what does your client look like? What age are they? What role do they play in a business? What demographic are they? What are their interests? Unless you've mapped out that client in full detail, you don't know what you should target. You don't know what you should sponsor. You don't know what you should reach out for exposure. So if you're going to start doing those things, make sure you really know who you're trying to reach.
Yeah. So from a social media aspect, let's just say, going back to the photography, if you're confident that this person you're doing free photos for, most of their followers are your ideal client, oh my God, it's a sweet deal. 100% it's a sweet deal. But you got to be confident in that. If you're doing free photos for a construction company, but you're a tech company, it's not you're not really going to see the demand because the demand isn't there from the followers.
Hey Hev, have you heard of IT Managed Services? They're an IT support service based in Kent.
Yeah, I've been with them for over a year now. I love being able to just call them at any point and they take over my computer and fix the issue so much quicker than spending hours on Google.
Why have you kept that to yourself all this time? Right, I need to sign up to these guys. What's their website?
It's it-ms.co.uk or you can call 01634 218 362.
So it is about doing your research because time is money.
Yeah, like a good example would be doing kind of your service for exposure for a networking group, for example, is normally a bit of a home run because you know people are actively looking for services. So if you've offered a website for them, or if you've offered photography for them, if you've offered a HR service, so you've got a partnership deal with them, you know that their audience are actively searching for stuff. So that's like a really good example of it's a good exposure technique.
Yeah, no, definitely. Or if there's a company out there that just have a large following.
Yeah.
Like that is just exposure. Like they're not, like they might be a very different business, but let's just say they've got 100,000 followers. Like you got to think about a percentage. Probably 5% of that might need your services. 5% of 100,000 followers is quite a lot. Was that 5,000?
Yeah, and also it's not even in terms of like quantity in terms of followers. If you know someone's got a really engaged following and they're quite influential, because there might be someone you know who's got a few thousand followers, but you know those 1,000 followers hang off their every word. If you can do something for them and they're going to recommend you, that's really valuable because a lot of people do have a lot of sway on people's opinions. Like, for example, if you look at like a well-respected business coach, if you offer a service to them for exposure and they really like what you've done, chances are it's going to ripple then down to their clients. So you've got to kind of think, okay, if I'm in construction, is there something I can do with an architect because they're kind of like the point of the triangle, and they're going to like recommend you all the way down. So it's kind of finding the big player. What can you do for exposure for the big player? Because then it will ripple down to the subsidiaries.
Yeah, I think we've covered exposure quite a bit now. Let's talk about where people see an opportunity to do some free work to get more work from that client. So let's just say we are dealing with a client who are just starting out, and you know that long time, you're confident anyway that down the road they're going to need your services and they're going to have the money then.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
It definitely works. I mean, I've started with clients on small packages and they've ended up being one of my biggest clients because I've grown with them. But I would kind of steer away doing things undervaluing you. You can give smaller packages, but make sure that's still worth your while because then it gives them room to grow. I think you can do teaser things, I think, and it shows goodwill and it creates that relationship. So, I don't know, say if you was an SEO expert, you did a free mini audit rather than a free audit.
Yeah.
So you're giving them a little like slice of the pie, but you're not giving them the whole pie.
Yeah.
Or free resources. So say if you're in HR, have you got a free guide that they can use? It's like a bit of like a how-to guide for basics, like little free resources which kind
'Cause
of
that's just a marketing ploy, really.
yeah, it's like it's like if you was to give someone a little bit of your drink, but you didn't let them have the whole can. So they're like, oh, that was nice. I'd really quite like to finish that.
£100, please.
Yeah, so I would give them a taste, but don't give them the full
Yeah.
experience.
I experienced that when I was just starting out, and I was bumping into loads of businesses that just needed a couple of tweaks on their website, and I'm like, yeah, sure. I think it was about 4 or 5 websites where I just did very tiny tweaks. We were talking about like an hour or two, just tweaks. And out of those 5, only one of them actually ended up using us. So I think what people need to realise is, if that is the case, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't just do this for one client thinking that you're going to get an end result. It might be worth like just advertising it within your networking group. Like, look, I'm happy to do a free mini audit, which is a great example. Or I'm happy to create a free privacy policy for your website because it's lacking a privacy policy. I think that's great because it's more of a marketing tactic rather than supporting the business. Well, it's a bit of both, obviously, but
yeah.
it's great for that. Any more?
I'm
I
trying
think
to
we've
think.
covered quite a lot, actually.
Yeah, I just think it all comes down to value your worth. If you feel like you're giving more than you're getting back over a longer period of time, then step back. And
Don't be afraid to step back.
Yeah, and I think it's really important every 3 months to kind of take a step back and evaluate what you're doing, what's working well, what isn't, and pivoting when you need to pivot or changing things. Don't be too rigid in your packages. If you are struggling to get leads in, is there these little taster things you can do for free to give them a slice of, I'm amazing, you should go for the full thing? I remember once I was chatting with someone and their cheapest package was thousands of pounds. And I said, it's going to take a lot for someone to go for that. And I'm not saying you're not worth it. But if someone's not worked for you before, is the first thing they're going to do be thousands of pounds worth? Probably not. You need to kind of have a bite-sized service. It's kind of what they call like your when you look at your funnel, it's what's that lead magnet? What gets them in the door to then open them up to those larger ticket items? So just make sure whatever you're doing, if you're doing free exposure, whatever, there's always something low ticket you can offer them to get them in the door. And then once they know, like, and trust you, it just widens up and you can offer so much more to them.
And as they grow, you grow, and vice versa. Love that. Right, guys, I hope you find that helpful.
Yep.
And obviously, as always, we'll see you next week for the next episode of The Rookie CEO.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.